and this is Paradise After Dark.
Paradise After Dark is a bi-weekly podcast covering true crime,
unsolved mysteries,
missing persons,
urban legends, and the dark side of the Sunshine State.
But first, if you would like to support the show, please subscribe to our Patreon page at patreon.com/Paradise After Dark podcast.
On Patreon, you'll have access to bonus episodes, our spin-off show Vacation Edition, discounts on our merchandise, and more. If you have a question, a Florida case suggestion, or you'd just like to chat, please email us at paradiseafterdarkpodcast@gmail.com.
Yep. And I got to say that last bonus vacation edition that we did was very interesting. It changed my mind on quite a bit of the true crime things that are out there right now. It really did shed a lot of light and actually bring like a whole new aspect of some of the stuff out there. I really enjoyed it. Definitely.
And got some business to attend to.
First of all, we want to thank our newest
patron, Christine. Thank you so much. Coming in at the true crime level.
Whoa, that's big dog style.
I know, right?
Rocking and rolling.
Thank you, Christine.
Yeah, you are awesome.
And are you guys ready for the big announcement? If you've been on our social media in the last few days, you probably already know. But we are going to CrimeCon UK in London.
Hello.
In London.
Hello.
On June 12th and 13th, 2021. If you'd like to join us, get your tickets now. They're on early bird special and use our promo code Paradise21 to get 10% off.
And I'm going to highly recommend that you go ahead and book your hotel now because that's almost like, that's like a given. Because when we went to CrimeCon before, we stayed at a different hotel, which was fine because we weren't very far away, but something about staying in the same resort or the same hotel.
Yeah.
With everyone stays there. So you're not only going to see them in the events, you're going to actually see them at the bar having a drink. You're going to enjoy the company of them having dinner. And you never know. You might get lucky and have one of your favorite podcasters come and join you for breakfast.
Yeah.
Kind of like we did.
Yeah.
Thank you, Captain.
True story. So, and one more thing before we get started on this episode. I want to hear what our friends Nigel and Jasmine have to say from Trouble in Paradise.
Wait, they're our friends?
Yes,
I'm just kidding. Yeah, they're our friends.
Hi, I'm Nigel Kent.
And I'm Jasmine Starr.
And we are Trouble in Paradise,
the podcast that covers politics to the paranormal, conspiracy theories to crazy Karens,
and all the weird news in between from our studios in Southwest Florida.
Listen to Trouble in Paradise on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube.
Nothing is too out there for us.
Trouble in Paradise.
Trouble239.com.
All right, everyone. So check them out. Trouble in Paradise podcast.
So Lauren, the case this week. This is not my favorite type of case.
No, me neither.
Let's this is something we got to put out there.
Yes. So tonight we're talking about the case of Amanda Dougherty. Amanda, aka Mandy, was 5 years old when she was discovered missing from her home at the 800 block of Southwest 63rd Terrace in North Lauderdale, Florida, on the morning of Thursday, September 22nd, 1994.
Yeah, Amanda was the second child of David and Lori Dougherty. The couple were both 26 years old and had been married for 8 years. They had an older son who was 9 at the time. Now, Amanda was described by family and neighbors as street smart and gutsy for a 5-year-old. I'm not sure what that means, but I guess it means that she was probably knew people in the neighborhood and was used to being outside and kind of knew her neighborhood.
Yeah.
I guess that's what I mean. She knew, for a 5-year-old, she knew her neighborhood. She stuck to her big brother Jason like a magnet. Now, everywhere they went, Amanda was right behind him. She had a big personality of her own. She didn't tolerate backtalk and mostly hung out with older kids in the neighborhood. And I'm assuming that if her older brother was 9, probably in that age range, the 8-9-year-olds, of her being 5.
Yeah.
She liked to play fight on a trampoline and always won by knocking off her opponents, knocking them down. So on a family trip to Disney once, not long before her disappearance, she rode almost every ride and wasn't scared of any of the big scary ones, not even a bit. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, I got to be honest.
I'm kind of scared of
I've been to a few of those rides. What? It's a Small World was the worst. That's scary. It's dark. Anyway, all kidding aside, her kindergarten teacher described her as a good student who was well adjusted.
So Amanda had gone to bed at about 10 p.m. the night before her disappearance, and either her mother, Lori, or her father, David, now there's discrepancies in the reports here, checked on her between 11 p.m. and 12 a.m., and she was sleeping peacefully in her room. At approximately 6 a.m. the following morning, Amanda's father and brother found the front door of the house wide open, and Amanda was gone. Police were immediately called by Amanda's father, David.
There's not a ton of information about the search for Amanda, only old newspaper articles from 1994, and obviously it's not like it is now with the internet and information spreading so rapidly.
At first, the Broward County authorities hoped that Amanda had simply wandered away from her home in the middle of the night and possibly fallen asleep somewhere. But when the afternoon rolled around, that theory seemed less and less. When afternoon came, we started to lose that hope, North Lauderdale Police Captain Lou Cavallo told the Sun-Sentinel. And by evening, when she still hadn't been found, we had started thinking she was involved in a serious accident or an abduction.
Oof. And about mid-morning on that Friday, police moved their command center from the Dougherty home to a nearby shopping center parking lot. This is when the FBI got involved. That's when you know things are supposedly about to happen. Now, officials from the Adam Walsh Center also got involved, and you all remember Adam Walsh case. I think it was episode 50. And Amanda's disappearance was featured on the show America's Most Wanted the following evening.
Wow, that was fast.
That happened very quick.
So authorities and volunteers spent the next 2 days searching for the little girl. They combed through the woods and searched the canals that snaked through the neighborhood. Friends and neighbors stationed themselves on all street corners of the neighborhood, passing out flyers with Amanda's face and description on them. The Broward County Sheriff's Office had a helicopter in the air searching large waterways near the home. They also brought in divers to search the waters. By Friday afternoon, the family was supplying Amanda's socks and other items to police so search dogs could get her scent and hunt for her. Still, they found nothing.
On Friday night, police announced that they had no evidence that she was forced from the house or kidnapped. But there were some strange things surrounding Amanda's disappearance. And this one here I find to be the absolute most odd.
Yes, this is super weird.
A jogger reported that she saw a young girl matching Amanda's description around 12:30 a.m. sitting along a bus stop and crying, but the jogger didn't stop to help. Now, I'm just going to say that again. The jogger is running by. Now, a male jogger, I can understand, but I would think that a female jogger jogging by would see a child of this age crying at a bus stop at 12:30 in the morning and not stop and say, hey, what's wrong?
Yeah, that's weird.
Now, if they were scared, how do they feel like the child was scared? Or maybe the child was left. I mean, that one kept playing over my head every time that I've seen that come up in the research.
Right.
I just don't understand that, why you wouldn't stop. And this is 1994. So this is, I don't want to say a lighter time because, since the 70s in serial killers, there's not really a lighter time in history as far as weird stuff. But you would just think that in this neighborhood, and keep in mind, this neighborhood it's like a I don't want to say it's a cul-de-sac, but it's like a giant circle.
Yeah. So
when you hit 63rd Terrace around the 800 block, that's sort of in the cul-de-sac, or like not the cul-de-sac, but the curve. So you come off of a main road and you go straight up, and this road just comes back around into a big circle. And it actually turns into 3 different streets because it literally makes like a giant circle. So it's not like it's just some thoroughfare. So if you're jogging on this road and you see the child, it's just that the whole thing just is really weird to me. I don't understand it. You would think they would have stopped. But neighbors also noticed that the Dougherty family's front door was wide open at 3:30 a.m. and the dogs were running loose and they did nothing. So again, here's something where neighbors, is this something that normally happened? Did they see this before like that?
The front door wide open?
Yeah, and dogs running around. And was this something that happened often? So that's a question I had. And the family's 2 pit bulls, who were usually very protective of the family, had not alerted the family to anything amiss. So they didn't bark. The family insisted that the dogs were vigilant and never would have allowed an intruder into the house. And they also stated that if Amanda had walked off, they would have followed her.
The dogs would have followed her.
Yeah. So you would think that if she was at the bus stop, the dogs would have been there.
Right.
If someone saw her. If, in fact, Amanda was the one that was seen at the bus stop, which is something I had to keep telling myself
right
as I went through this. So
So on Saturday, September 25th, 1994, the body of a small girl was found in a shallow waterway in southern Palm Beach County, 28 miles from the Dougherty home. She was found nude, and it was immediately obvious that she was a victim of a homicide. David Dougherty was brought to the Palm Beach County Medical Examiner's office to identify the body, but he couldn't identify the body with certainty, but told authorities that it was likely Amanda. Now, a parent's failure to identify their child's body in such a condition, bloated and decomposing, is common, according to Captain Lou Cavallo. That's what he told the Sun Sentinel. So Amanda's grandfather was shown a Polaroid that was taken after the swelling of the body had subsided and confirmed that it was definitely Amanda. David was taken to the Palm Beach County Sheriff's Office for questioning. It was said that he was extremely distraught, once falling on the ground in hysterics.
So they're saying the body was so...
Well, it had been in water.
Oh, yeah. I guess that will change it a little bit.
And, right.
Okay, yeah, I remember that now. It was in water. Now, the Palm Beach County Sheriff's Office and North Lauderdale Police Department immediately formed a joint homicide investigation. And little by little, more details about the body found began to come out. The fact she was found nude, there was wire twisted around her neck, obviously strangulation, and an autopsy performed on that Saturday night confirmed the cause of death and the identification. And what they did is they matched an x-ray taken of Amanda 2 years earlier to make the confirmation. Now think about that. The body is so distorted or decomposed in such a way to where they got to use an x-ray to identify.
Mm-hmm.
And here the father has just been brought in to identify her. And I can't even fathom that. Now, the autopsy found no indication of a sexual assault. And there was no sign of the clothing that she was wearing when she vanished, which was a blue top and a pair of blue shorts.
I find that odd that she was found nude, but there was no indication of sexual assault.
Well, one thing I thought was maybe you kind of have to put yourself in a situation where maybe there was a sexual assault that was about to occur. But suddenly maybe he got seen, the person was seen. Maybe they figured it'd be less likely to identify her without the clothing. So there's some factors that would lead you to believe that. Like maybe they got caught in the act and they did, or were they just getting rid of the body and they wanted to just clear the body of anything that could identify her, which,
yeah, I don't know.
Well, the police announced at that time that they had no suspects and no significant evidence was found with the body at all.
So other details emerged as well. Apparently, her parents had been fighting the night Amanda disappeared. Police were called to the house the night before she vanished. As a matter of fact, police had been to the house over 24 times for domestic violence issues, but it never involved the children. Lori would call the police during their heated arguments, telling them that she felt threatened, and neighbors reported they often heard yelling and screaming coming from the home.
Well, David Dougherty was currently on probation for abusing his 72-year-old cancer-stricken grandmother over a 2-year period while he was acting as her guardian. So he's supposed to be taking care of her, and the court documents show that David had repeatedly hit his grandmother, Helen Caparelli, on the head, and x-rays showed that she had several blood clots on her brain when she died. Apparently those are from
What a piece of shit.
Exactly. So I'm assuming that they're from where he had hit her in the head. That's where the clots formed, I guess, when you get to a certain age.
I don't know.
Now, reports show that Helen had called the police several times from 1992 to before she died in 1994 to report that her grandson was abusing her. Okay, so why was nothing done?
Well, he was given 5 years probation after being convicted of elder abuse.
Well, yeah, but I'm saying at night. So for 2 years, though, finally he got busted. So obviously something they must have called and it was evident. Now, David Dougherty was also given probation after being convicted of a negligent homicide in the death of a friend when he ran him over with a motorcycle in 1984, which I find to be, I couldn't find any information on that.
Yeah, that's a little sketchy. When I was doing the research, I really couldn't find much information on that either, other than it happened.
Yeah, I guess it was...
he ran over a friend with a motorcycle and was convicted of negligent homicide.
So only I can figure is maybe it was an accident?
Well, obviously it was an
But
accident.
maybe he was drinking or high or something that caused it? I don't know. Well, the police no longer felt that Amanda had wandered off in the middle of the night. They now believed that she had been taken. And not only that, but they began to believe that it had to be someone close to the family. Someone that wouldn't provoke an attack from the vicious dogs the family kept. There was a man who lived in the Dougherty home for 6 months before Amanda's abduction. He was asked to move out shortly before Amanda's murder because David and Lori found a soda can used to smoke crack and a bag of sex toys in his possession. Wait a minute. That just reminded me of
Diana Alvarez.
Yeah. That was George Torres.
Yes.
It was Jorge Torres.
Yep.
Yeah, he had lived with them and then ended up coming back after her. There was also another man reportedly harassing Lori. And she had made 2 reports between 1990 and 1983 that she was receiving harassing and obscene phone calls.
So Mandy's funeral was held September 30th, 1994 at Our Lady Queen of Heaven Catholic Cemetery in North Lauderdale. More than 100 people gathered to pay their respects and say goodbye to Amanda. A large flower arrangement done up to look like Barney, the big purple dinosaur, stood above her coffin. Mourners wore bright colors as the request of the family. Her mother, Lori, sobbed and cried loudly, at one point screaming that she didn't want to say goodbye. David and Jason, her father and brother, sat quietly with not much emotion. Reporters and cameras were kept out of the cemetery, and police stopped everyone entering to make sure that they were friends and family of the Doughertys. Knowing what we know now, they may have also been screening the attendees looking for the killer.
So you think that they were standing guard, like trying to see who was there and who?
Right.
So who?
Because a lot of times a killer will show up at a funeral or a vigil.
I've heard that or seen that. Yeah.
So
that was sort of one of the ploys to see who shows up.
Right. Exactly.
And also maybe to keep track of who actually showed up, so they could see. Okay, well, let's see who's here that's family. And what?
See who's not here.
Exactly. Okay. I like it.
So investigators from Palm Beach County, North Lauderdale, the FBI, and the FDLE set out to find answers. Palm Beach Sheriff Sergeant Ken Deisher told the Sun-Sentinel, "There is no sense in something like this. Why is someone going to kill a 5-year-old? And you've got to find a motive behind all of this. There is a motive for everything." The authorities had been working 16 hours a day since Amanda's body was found, trying to track down her killer. Each morning and evening, the detectives would meet to discuss the case. Everything was tracked and written down, then typed up in a daily report and given to Sergeant Deisher, who assigned detectives to follow up leads. Much of the evidence was sent up to the Behavioral Science Unit of the FBI in Quantico, Virginia, so agents could start developing a psychological profile of the killer.
Yeah, in a lot of cases, that's an important feature that they put together, where at least you get some sort of basis of, okay, here's the type of guy that we're looking for.
Right.
But sadly, after 2 full weeks of investigating, detectives admitted that they still didn't have much to go on. Still nothing, no profile, not a whole lot put there, not a lot of evidence. And despite hundreds of tips, they were still facing a serious lack of physical evidence, witnesses, or any type of leads at all. They still had no idea how Amanda got from her bed in her home to the shallow canal she was found in, which, again, was 28 miles away. And one big question that kept popping up was how an intruder could have gotten past the family's 2 pit bulls, who reportedly snarl and snap at the strangers. Again, they were theorizing that it must have been someone who knew the family. So they struggled with the why of the whole case. Why was Mandy killed? And the autopsy showed no signs of sexual assault, and unlike adult murders, motives like jealousy, robbery, etc. didn't make sense. None of this makes sense.
No.
And that's actually a good question. What's the motive? If there's no sexual assault, is it just someone who likes to kill? But usually people who like to kill, if you go back and look at some of the most infamous killers that love to just kill, it was never children. Mm-hmm. It was never children. Even, you know what I mean?
And when it is children, if you take somebody like John Wayne Gacy or Albert Fish,
it's sexual assault.
It's sexual.
Yeah.
So this case is unique in that it doesn't fall in the regular parameters of what, I don't want to say the norm, but, you know.
In this genre, yes, the norm of what the actual MO would be.
So former Broward County Sheriff Nick Navarro told the Sun-Sentinel that his detectives faced similar obstacles in the 1987 case of 3-year-old Julie Magliolo, who disappeared from her home in a neighborhood not far from Amanda's. She was found a year later buried in the Everglades, and her cause of death was asphyxiation. That case was also unsolved with no real evidence or clues, but here's some of the differences in the two cases. Julie was abducted while playing outside her home, and Amanda was believed to be taken from inside her home. And police believe that Julia's abductor was a stranger, whereas they believe Amanda's was someone she knew.
Well, just wait, because there's more.
But first...
The mind of a criminal can be a very dark place. But you're not scared of the dark, are you? CrimeCon, the world's #1 true crime event, is coming to London, June 2021. Get inside the mind of serial killers and psychopaths. Learn from leading criminologists. Hear from the families and survivors. Meet your favorite true crime podcasters. Immerse yourself in forensic evidence and delve deeper into unsolved crimes. Limited early bird tickets are on sale now. Visit crimecon.co.uk. CrimeCon UK, the ultimate true crime weekend. Partnered by Crime and Investigation.
That's right, guys. We're going to CrimeCon UK in London on Saturday and Sunday, June 12th and 13th of 2021.
Yes. If you have been planning to go to UK or haven't been, this would be a great time to go. This is something to look forward to.
And make sure to get your early bird tickets now at crimecon.co.uk and use our promo code Paradise21 to get yourself 10% off.
10% off.
10% off.
Ooh, like it. I like it.
Yeah.
And don't worry about this COVID crap. If it's still kicking our butts in June, the organizers are agreeing to give a full refund or a transfer of your tickets.
Yes, that is definitely a perk of this event.
That's important right now for sure.
So join us and all your favorite podcasters, authors, journalists, filmmakers, professionals, as well as some real-life crime survivors.
Remember, folks, use our promo code.
And we hope to see you there.
Okay, so the more is that 33 days after Amanda's disappearance, another little girl was snatched from a flea market in Fort Lauderdale. Now, this particular flea market is, like, huge. It's a huge flea market. 7-year-old Christine Holt was in the restroom at the swap shop market when she vanished from the bathroom stall right next to her mother. A search of the flea market immediately ensued. So mom recognizes the child's missing. She makes a report and everything changes. People are looking for this child. And Christina's picture was circulated. Announcements were made over the intercom. The employees that were manning the entrance and exits were stopping everyone leaving with children, checking them, looking at them, making sure that it's not the missing child. And at first, alarm bells were going off. Was there someone preying on the children of this community? Were there people in Lauderdale that were looking at kids or someone that was taking kids?
Right.
And fortunately, there wasn't. But sadly, 5 days after Christina disappeared, her stepfather finally admitted to accidentally killing her and burying her in an empty lot behind a Kmart. He didn't accidentally bury her. He claimed he accidentally killed her and then disposed of her body. Dick. Now, over the next 4 weeks, her mother, Pauline Zile, and her stepfather, Walter Zile, concocted this cover-up scheme, rehearsed it, and executed it at the swap shop.
Oh, my gosh. So the mom was in on it?
Yeah. So you want to just give like a quick recap of that?
So the stepdad accidentally kills the little girl.
Uh-huh.
And then the mom and stepdad come up with this plan.
To have it look like the child's missing.
To have it look like she was taken from the bathroom at the flea market.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God. People are sick.
Yeah. So they thought at first, when this first occurred, that this could have been connected.
Right.
To Amanda.
Right. So after 30 days, the police still didn't have much in the way of leads in Amanda's case. They focused in on the family and those close to them, especially the parents. The family didn't do themselves any favors when in November of that year, David got angry and kicked the detectives out of his home and refused to answer any more questions. David told authorities he was, quote, sick of them twisting the truth and asking him irrelevant questions. It was also stated in several news articles on this case that David Dougherty failed a lie detector test and a voice stress test when asked about Amanda's murder.
Well, just real quick, I'm going to defend him here real quick. If your daughter has been taken and you were not involved in any way, shape, or form, you kissed her goodnight and the next morning you wake up and she's missing and then they find her dead. You've been called in and you are said, hey, can you identify her? And you do that. And then the police come to you and they ask you some questions and they ask you some questions, but you kind of get a sense that, you know, and most of us know that if a family member goes missing and if Lauren were to go missing, they're going to call me in. I'm going to answer every question they got as fast as I can to clear my name because it's never the husband.
It's always the husband.
No, it's never the husband. So I'm going to clear my name as fast as possible. But I can understand if they are so hooked on believing that David was the one that committed the murder, then they're going to hound him to death. So if they give him a polygraph, a lie detector, a stress test, he might be upset or angry because maybe he doesn't quite understand, hey, I didn't do this. Why are you doing this? So I can understand in his defense that maybe he's stressed out because of this. But then again, is he stressed out or is this occurring because he had something to do with it? So I kind of lean both ways on this.
Well, the whole family stopped cooperating with the police around this time. Sergeant John Kanaka told the Sun-Sentinel that since the family was told they were considered suspects, they stopped working with them.
I understand. I would do the same.
But it's standard procedure to look at the parents first, if anything, just to eliminate them so they can move on. In this case, the lack of cooperation is actually making them look more suspicious, Sergeant Kanaka said. Now, Christina Holt's case, where the parents were actually the killers, didn't help the idea of the Dougherty's innocence.
Oh, yeah, I can see that.
Also, in 1994, that's the same year that Susan Smith drowned her children in a lake so that she could be with her lover. And remember, she said that she was carjacked by a black guy, and then the children.
Oh, I remember her.
You remember
now.
the Susan
Yes.
Smith case?
Is that the one she drove the car into the water and then got out?
Yes. So there was a lot in the news that year about parents killing their children.
Now that you brought that up, that case there was a disgusting case.
Yeah, it was.
I remember that actually. Yeah, I remember that. That was awful. And then the excuses she came up with was like, she kept like changing her story. Oh, that was a terrible case.
Right.
That was in Texas? Was that here in Florida? That wasn't in Florida.
No, I think it was in North Carolina.
North Carolina? Well, there was never any concrete evidence pointing at Mandy's family. And of course, after so much time, the case eventually goes cold. And in October of 1995, the Palm Beach Post released a rather unsettling article regarding Amanda Dougherty. And in it, they claimed that HRS, which is now called CPS, so it's gone from
Child Protective Services.
Used to be Health and Rehabilitation Services. I think that's what it's called.
Yeah.
So now it's called Child Protection Services, CPS. The files released by court order showed that Amanda may have been sexually abused 2 years before her murder. So she wasn't sexually assaulted at the time, but apparently they're saying now that it's possible that she was sexually abused 2 years prior to her going missing.
That would have been when she was 3 years old.
Yes. Now, although it doesn't mention specifically who the supposed abuser was, the report mentioned that Amanda and her older brother Jason, who was 7 at the time, should not sleep in the same bed. So maybe it was the brother? You think that's possible?
Maybe.
Or are you thinking maybe like an adult? I don't know.
I have no idea.
Well, it also stated that children should no longer be left alone with their great-grandmother who was senile and drank alcohol. Now, I don't know if this was the
same
grandmother that was being abused by David.
I don't know.
I don't know. So the last and maybe most disturbing part of this report was that the case manager described Amanda's home life as troubled and noted that her mother, Lori, was working as a topless dancer and was entertaining men in her home while her husband, David, was in jail for probation violation earlier in 1994.
What?
Now, yeah, I don't mind if you're going to be a topless dancer. Go do your thing. If you can do it, rock it, get paid. But don't do it in your home when you have children.
Well, I don't think when they're saying entertaining men in the home, I don't think that she's topless dancing.
Well, it says it works with topless dancers, what I read. That's what it said. That's what the research said. So
I just have a feeling it's a little bit more than topless dancing that she would be doing in her home.
This show is PG-13, Laura.
No, it's not. It's rated E.
For everyone?
For explicit.
Oh.
So in July of 2000, almost 6 years after Amanda's murder, there was a new push from the Palm Beach and Broward County Sheriff's Office to look into her case. Paul Miller, a spokesman for the Palm Beach County Sheriff's Office, told the Sun-Sentinel, "Everybody feels there will be an arrest and a conviction, and it is a very upbeat investigation. However, I do not want to leave the impression that tomorrow we will put handcuffs on someone." Investigators began to re-interview people in the case and look at evidence made available through new scientific methods. They were apparently still looking hard at Amanda's family, especially her father.
And totally understandable.
Right.
He failed the 2 tests or the multiple tests they gave him. He's got the history of violence. He's got the history for this particular crime to occur, and it makes total sense to keep him as a suspect. Especially when you have nothing else. You got to look at what looks good.
Yep.
Now, this renewed interest in Amanda's case came just on the heels of David Dougherty's arrest for a standoff with North Lauderdale police in which he was accused of choking and throwing his wife Lori to the ground and brandishing a pistol in front of officers. That's never a good idea. Now, Dougherty told the Sun-Sentinel that investigators questioned him after his recent arrest about Amanda's murder, though he would not say what they asked him or how many times he had been interviewed. He, again, clammed up just like he did before. Now, on the advice of a lawyer, David would not discuss the case. However, he did say this: "I love my family. I didn't kill my daughter, and I have no knowledge of who killed her. I've lost everything. I know it doesn't matter what I say because people are going to think what they want to think, but I'm not the monster I've been made out to be." I don't know. I kind of feel for the guy. Is that bad of me right at this point? Because, I don't know. Maybe I'm just being oversympathetic. David's wife, Lori, told the Sun-Sentinel that the investigators were using David's violent past and current arrest to cast him in a bad light and make him look guilty of Amanda's murder. She stated that she felt detectives were ignoring the family when they gave them names of possible suspects. That's key.
So now we're going to get into other possible suspects.
Yeah, and these are possible suspects that were given by the family.
Yes. So in September of the year 2000, police arrested a man named Stephen Covell after he abducted and sexually assaulted a 10-year-old girl. In a strange twist, Covell turned out to also be the Big Boy Bandit, a 300-pound man who was reportedly responsible for at least 7 bank robberies in the Southwest Florida area. He confessed to abducting and assaulting the 10-year-old. But there was a connection to Amanda. Now, remember earlier when we mentioned the man who lived with the family and was asked to move out because of the soda can used to smoke crack and a bag of sex toys he kept in the house? That was Stephen Covell.
No shit.
In the abduction of the 10-year-old, Covell drove alongside her as she rode her scooter with her 6-year-old sister at about 7 a.m. He yanked the girl into the red van, creeper van, and took off with her. About 2 hours later, police received a 911 call. The girl had been dropped off on the side of the road and found a stranger with a cell phone and told them what happened. Deputies rushed her to the county's sexual assault trauma center, and a deputy 3 blocks from where the girl was found began tailing Covell.
So he's followed the girls. He's grabbed one of them, threw her in the van. The other girl called 911 or told somebody about it and called 911?
No, the girl that he abducted was let out. He let her out 2 hours later.
Got it.
So the deputies find him and they start tailing him. He tried to make a traffic stop, but Covell drove off, prompting a massive chase. The pursuit ended a short time after it began when Covell collided with another car. When police eventually stopped him, they realized because of his size and the fact that he was covered in red ink from the dye packs that witnesses said exploded on him during the most recent bank robbery, that he was also the big boy bandit.
Which makes sense, because if he's $3 bills and he
covered in dye from dye packs,
that makes perfect sense.
So he's a bank robber and a child molester.
An abductor.
And a crack smoker.
And just a regular old shithead, pretty much.
Pretty much, yeah.
Well, Covell had lengthy record dating back to the early 1980s that included grand theft, forgery, burglary, trafficking in stolen property, and drug convictions. This brings me to ask the question, or to impress upon people, if you were going to let someone stay in your house for any reason, figure out a way to do a background check. Because it would seem to me that a smart father and mother who had small children in the home would have looked at someone's background and said, you know what? You're probably not the most ideal guy to live in my house for 6 months.
Yeah. I agree.
Just sort of a public awareness tip. So Covell in his creeper van also resembled witnesses' description of a man who had abducted and sexually assaulted a 3-year-old in August of that year. Now, the girl was later found alive at a dump site. So this is another girl who was abducted.
Picked up, sexually assaulted, but then let go.
Now, as far as Covell's connection to Amanda Dougherty's case, Paul Miller, spokesman for the Palm Beach County Sheriff's Office, stated that he was never eliminated as a suspect, and while police always maintained that David Dougherty was the main suspect in Amanda's murder, Amanda's parents were pointing the finger at Steve Covell from day one. So that's why I kind of am sympathetic towards David a little bit, because even though he is a prime suspect, he wasn't the only one, and I think sometimes they overfocus.
Yeah, so tunnel vision.
Yeah, and that can be a problem sometimes. I'm not blaming law enforcement at all, but I think sometimes you got to expand your horizons when it comes to suspects and treat everyone as a main suspect until you eliminate them.
Right.
Now, Lori Dougherty said that Covell used to sleep with the dogs when he lived in her home, and that they were very familiar with him, which this, of course, may explain if Covell was the killer, how he was able to get past the dogs and take Amanda. Because, that was the key, was how did he get past the dogs?
Yeah.
Or anyone get past the dogs, for that matter. Now, Lori Dougherty made a statement to the Sun Sentinel after Covell's arrest, saying, Steve is who I felt in my heart did it. Me and my husband have been through the ringer with this, and I hope it comes out now. Covell, who was a house painter at the time, had also worked in an apartment complex close to where Amanda's body was found. So that makes him kind of familiar with the neighborhood.
Right.
Now, again, a lot of these facts, I don't know if they knew until he was arrested and taken into custody. So it's hard to tell, what they were able to put together after he was arrested versus what they could have investigated.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Lori also said that Covell's neighbors reported seeing him removing the carpet from his van and washing out the vehicle shortly after the girl's death. Yeah. And the saddest part was that done after Amanda's death or maybe somebody else's? Because we don't know at this point. Or the time framing, I guess it would have to be Amanda's, but you never know with this sick fuck. Now, Marie Cundery, Laura's aunt, told the Sun Sentinel that Covell was about the only family friend who did not volunteer to look for the child when she was reported missing.
So,
yeah.
What I'm thinking and what I'm wondering here is with his MO, is he picks up a child, he'll sexually assault her, and then drop her off somewhere. But I'm wondering why did he, if he did indeed take Amanda, the only thing I'm thinking is he had to kill her because she knew who he was. But then this is completely hypothetical.
Understand.
But that's the only thing I'm thinking, because he, according to his actual record, he's never killed anyone before. So why was if it was him, why did he kill Amanda?
Well, and keep in mind, he sexually assaults.
But he didn't sexually assault Amanda. Amanda was not sexually assaulted.
Now, you hear me on this, and then you give me your opinion. And obviously, listeners, you have your own, I'm sure. Is it possible that the reason she was not sexually assaulted, if in fact he's the one who did it, and I'm so twisted on this. I'm kind of leaning towards him because it's definitely part of what he's willing to do, his MO, if you will. Is it possible that he kidnapped her, took her clothes off, and was going to sexually assault her, but because he had spent so much time with them and the family, he couldn't do it. Therefore, he just killed her and was like, I can't do this. Maybe he was going to, and I don't want to say grew a conscience because I don't think he has one, but maybe there was some sort of connection. Like maybe he felt like she was a niece or a daughter or a friend of the family that she lived with for 6 months. So she was considered family. He couldn't do it. And maybe that's when he killed her. Like, I can't do this, but yet he knew she could identify him. So he had no choice.
Right.
I mean, do you understand what I'm saying? Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense.
I mean, because why would, he wouldn't want to kill his own child or his own friend or family. I don't know. I'm just throwing it out there to get a feel for what you thought. But that was my thought on this.
So Stephen Covell was found guilty in the case of the 10-year-old girl and sentenced to life in prison. In August of 2008, Amanda's face and the facts surrounding her murder were featured in the 3rd edition of the Cold Case playing cards. The Cold Case playing cards are decks of cards handed out in Florida jails and prisons with hopes that someone will see one of these cases and come forward with information. Amanda was the 3 of hearts in that deck. And David Dougherty died on August 20th of 2011, and Amanda's mother, Lori, died on June 6th of 2015. And this is where the trail goes completely cold. There's no parents left looking. There's no, I know she had a brother, but I have no information on where he is or what he's doing or if he's still looking. And there hasn't been any media on this case in over a decade that I could find.
Well, and the saddest part, I think, in this case is I think they already have the guy.
They just can't prove it.
Yeah, the evidence isn't there. And that's the problem with water, because she was found in the water. But then again, without any type of sexual assault. And again, we talked about how the neighbors seen him washing out the van.
Right.
She was strangled. Right. Or they wrapped a wire around her throat.
Yeah.
She died from asphyxiation.
There wouldn't blood.
Exactly, which is why I said, or maybe somebody else, which was my concern. So why would he clean out the van or wash out the van?
Right.
It could have probably been somebody else. I don't know. So this guy's Covell, he's, I don't know. I think he's going to be the suspect that I'm going to lean to.
I think that he probably did it, and he's already sentenced to life in prison. So they're not wasting, I don't want to say wasting, but they're not using their resources to continue
to convict him. He's not going to get out of jail.
Yeah.
And I think, you can put tags on him if you want, but it's not really going to do much. Sadly, I don't know how or why her parents died. I mean, they're young. They're 43, 45.
Yeah. And I couldn't find a cause of death or how they died.
Yeah. I would say at that age, it's probably going to be, I want to say drugs, maybe.
Well, and I don't like to say bad things, but I mean, by what we do know, they weren't the most upstanding citizens, and there were talks of drugs in different scenarios. So, it's just, a poor 5-year-old little girl.
And it could
lost her life.
And it could be that the family was destroyed by that. If they had no involvement and they were looked at as suspects and they felt like they were suspects and they felt pressured, and the media can get involved and you just feel like you're guilty in the eyes of the public, And maybe that just kind of took its toll over time. And, you know, and sometimes if you already have an addictive personality, you can turn to a drug, which is sad. So it's just one of those where if in fact that's the case, that means that if Covell is guilty of murdering poor Amanda, then it's possible that he's basically guilty of 3 homicides, you know, because the parents they die inside too. I mean, you're running a whole family. Remember, but anyway, this is considered an unsolved homicide. Remember, she is the 3 of Hearts. And if you have any info regarding this case, call Crime Stoppers at 1-800-226-TIPS.
Yep.
So again, I guess that's going to be the case for tonight.
All right. And if you'd like to support our show, please subscribe to our Patreon at patreon.com/Paradise After Dark podcast. Remember, on Patreon, you get early and ad-free episodes, bonus episodes, our spin-off show, Vacation Edition, discounts on our merchandise, and a whole bunch more.
Yeah, our Patreon is full of all kinds of fun stuff.
Yes, it is.
So, and check out our Etsy store for some awesome Paradise After Dark gear.
And please make sure to follow us on social media at Paradise After Dark Podcast on Instagram and Facebook, and at Paradise Dark 239 on Twitter.
And you can email us or me. I'm sorry, I'm just kidding. It'd be us because Lauren checks the email. ParadiseAfterDarkPodcast@gmail.com.
And please make sure to subscribe to the show on whatever platform you're listening and rate and review us. 5 stars, please.
5 stars.
This
help.
really helps us branch out and reach a wider audience.
And as always, folks, we love you and thank you for listening
To Paradise After Dark.
Dark.